Welcome, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is James Ellsmore, one of the technical organizers. Just to give you a few quick pointers before we hand over to the moderator, please note that there is a chat and a Q&A box. We'll invite you to submit comments throughout in the chat, but if you do have a question for any panelists, please make sure that you use the Q&A box for that. Note that this session is being recorded. All sessions will be available afterwards to rewatch in case you missed one of them. Finally, we will be having 3 sessions today, including the network session, the third and final session, and would encourage you to join all of those to meet other members and meet with the organizers. We'll also be having several sessions tomorrow again, and all of that information has been emailed to you. With that, I'll hand over to our moderator, Stephen Lutz. Stephen.
Hi there. Hello and welcome everyone to the Communities, Climate and Coastal Ecosystems Showcase event brought to you by the UN Environment Programme, Global Environment Facilities Blue Forest Project. My name is Stephen Lutz with Grid Arendal in Norway, and I am moderating today's event. We would first like to open with a prepared statement by Leah Kerr, Senior Environmental Specialist with the Global Environment Facility.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Communities, Climate, and Coastal Ecosystems Showcase event. I'm Leah Carr, Senior Environmental Specialist with the Global Environment Facilities International Waters team. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years, but indeed this event culminates the implementation of the Blue Forest Project, an initiative of the UN Environment Program applied through and with partners all around the world. I want to stress the importance of this project not only to the GEF, but to the international marine and coastal conservation community. Increasingly, countries are adopting a blue economy approach, which emphasizes the contributions of coastal and marine ecosystems to sustainable development, including fisheries and aquaculture, tourism, extractive industries, renewable energy, coastal development, and marine transportation. So blue economy sounds great in theory, but the real trick is execution on the ground, which requires demonstrating the importance of these ecosystems to human well-being in order to gain political, private, and public support for conservation action. This is where the Blue Forest Project comes in. It does just that. It demonstrates the economic value of blue forest, meaning seagrass beds, coral reefs, mangrove forests, and saltwater marshes, for a range of services, from carbon sequestration to water purification to tourism and recreation. Working through 22 partners on 6 continents, this project has gone even further by providing proof of concept, on-the-ground examples around the world of how blue forest values and services can be harnessed in policy, management, and financial incentives to achieve goals for mitigating climate change, sustainable ecosystem management, and improved livelihoods. These examples are currently being replicated and upscaled by countries and organizations around the world. And through engagement at the UNFCCC and other international treaties, the project has shown the international community the incredible value of these ecosystems in order to gain even greater high-level political support. Through all this work, the Blue Forest Project has benefited coastal ecosystem management and sustainability, which will influence climate policies and coastal sustainability for years to come. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this showcase event.
Hi there. Thank you, Leah, for your inspiring remarks. And now I'd like to welcome Leticia Carvalho, Head of the Marine and Freshwater Branch with the UN Environment Program, to introduce our event today.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I hope you can hear and see me clearly. And I would like please to have my slide deck moving on, so this can help me to move ahead. Excellent. Here we go. Greetings and welcome to the closing event of UNEP GREED Jeff International Waters project on blue forests. The aim for today is to celebrate and showcase the project achievements and legacy. I am Leticia Carvalho, Head of Marine and Freshwater Branch and Ecosystem Division at UNEP. I supposed to resist and only speak, but I couldn't. So this is why I have some slides to showcase for you, as we have amazing beauties coming from this project. Next slide, please. For context, the Blue Forests project had a relatively small budget, $4.5 million, but a huge scope, and count on 22 partners on 6 continents. Thanks to support for JEF and in partnership with GREED Arendal, UN, IUCN, Conservation International, and WWF, as well as several governments, UNEP has led this project to great success, demonstrating an excellent framework for collaboration and cooperation. The end result is a project that is definitely punching above its weight. Next, please. To quickly set the stage for why this project is so important, I'd like to highlight the current state of our ocean. Planetary systems and humanity are wholly reliant on a healthy ocean. However, the ocean now stands at the nexus of our triple planetary crisis of habitat loss, climate change, and rampant pollution, caused by decades of unsustainable production and consumption and irresponsible practices. The UN Environment Programme and the University of Oxford has found that the top 50 economies committed an unprecedented 14.6 trillion of pandemic recovery spending, but only 3% of this was devoted for green recovery. Even a smaller fraction is likely devoted to sustainable ocean health. This means blue recovery. And yet, the ocean economy has an annual economic value of about $2.5 trillion, equivalent to the world's 7th largest economy. Consequently, we must ensure that as the ocean economy grows, it is firmly grounded in the principle that activities that rely on the ocean and its bounty must also do no harm. This must be the mantra for sustainable blue economy. Though many benefits of the ocean are hiding from us, out of sight and out of mind, we must value its hiding treasures. Blue forests such as mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes can capture more carbon per unit and then area than terrestrial forests. And take a look in this amazing picture. A key benefit of this project is that it has advanced the art of proving its viability through the valuation of carbon sequestrated, in this case, in these coastal ecosystems. The importance of this as a solution cannot be underestimated. Next, please. In 2015, the UNEP Blue Forests project was launched to address the challenges associated with unlocking the values of coastal carbon and ecosystem services and converting them into options for improved ecosystem management. Prior to the project, the science around coastal blue carbon and ecosystem services contained many gaps, and there were very few proof of concept on the ground examples around the world. Additionally, the international community did not fully recognize the value of these systems for climate change mitigation. The Blue Forest Project, notably in Kenya, Ecuador, United Arab Emirates, and Madagascar, has been key in overcoming these hurdles in order to affect a truly transformative global impact on coastal ecosystem management and sustainability. Next slide, please. How did we get there? The project has combined research, policy development, technical advice, and practical tools with small-scale demonstrations across the globe. It has provided coastal scientists, ecosystem managers, and decision makers with essential scientific, ecosystem management, and economic tools leading to the better protection of coastal and marine ecosystems globally. It has also aimed to further enable the inclusion of blue forests as ecosystems in global carbon accounting frameworks, an absolutely critical piece for the puzzle for successful and lasting outcomes. Next slide, please. Essentially, the Blue Forest Project has spearheaded a more holistic approach to support coastal and marine ecosystem management. And in particular, the Blue Carbon projects need to recognize the myriad benefits that these ecosystems support and that coastal communities rely on. The results of the Blue Forest Project have helped to develop ideas around the nature-based blue economy, for which the Blue Forests concept can provide multiple options: carbon sequestration, fisheries management, tourism, and many others. The replicable and collaborative solutions that the Blue Forest Project has supported are also key in building back better after the COVID-19 crisis. As sustainable blue economy approaches take hold in the international development community, the Blue Forest Project has contributed the foundation of the standardized methodologies and approaches for carbon and ecosystem accounting. Much of this work has been accomplished both within Blue Forests and in external projects with methodologies refined and enhanced through invaluable on-site application at the project sites. Next slide, please. To date, no other projects have had the level of success on the voluntary carbon market that the Blue Forest Project has achieved. The project continues to be the world's largest exploration of blue carbon. In Madagascar and Kenya alone, the area of mangrove forests in the carbon market has increased 2.500%. This mangrove forest carbon supports local community land-based conservation and restoration efforts, with the profit from carbon finance supporting community initiatives, such as purchasing school books for local children, building of freshwater wells, and COVID education. Blue carbon has received increased interest by countries in meeting their UNFCCC goals, and most blue carbon discussions leading up to the COP26 feature our interventions in Kenya and Madagascar, which have proven that blue carbon finance can work for climate change, biodiversity, and local communities. The main products of the Blue Forests Project assembled in the Blue Forest Global Solutions Toolkit are critically needed to help advance sustainable coastal and marine ecosystem management more broadly, including the blue carbon approach. Next slide, please. The international community has embraced the value of these coastal and marine ecosystems as important nature-based solutions, with over 50 countries recognize them in their NDCs. The lessons learned and success from the Blue Forest Project can help shape sustainable policy for decades to come, as countries and local communities implement Blue Forest solutions. Further, the Blue Forest Global Solutions Toolkit, being launched today at this event, provides a platform and the tools necessary for developing nature-based blue economy business models, recognizing the full range of ecosystem benefits and increasing resilience in the face of global environmental changes. The toolkit will constitute a critical element of UNEP's Sustainable Blue Economy Transition Framework, currently under finalization to help countries in navigating towards a sustainable blue economy. Next slide, please. As I conclude, I definitely wish you an enjoyable showcase event and extending learning through the deep dive webinar series from now until mid-July 2021. I would like to recognize the project team, including my staff at UNEP, the GRID's leadership in coordinating this pioneering project, and the collaboration and of the participation of many countries, as well as the 22 project partners. I hope you enjoy the showcase event and trust that you will make ample use of this Vanguard Transformative Resources Toolkit to support Blue Forest schemes over the world. Thank you very much, Stephen, and back to you.
Thank you, Letitia. It's been a wonderful journey working with UN Environment and our project partners. And this is what I will now describe. Let me Give me a couple seconds to share my screen here. Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Great. So I'm Stephen Lutz again. I am the blue carbon lead at Grid Arendal, a Norwegian foundation based in Arendal, Norway. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And part of my duties here are to support the mission of the United Nations Environment Programme through coordinating and managing with my colleagues here at Grid Arendal the Blue Forests Project. And I'll describe that, I'll get into that in a second, but the goal of our event today, the goal of the Communities, Climate and Coastal Ecosystems Showcase event is to profile the experiences and lessons learned of the Blue Forests Project, so that we can use these experiences to assist with the development and replication of future initiatives. Okay, so just a little overcap of what we're doing right now. My presentation should run about 20 minutes. I'm going to introduce Blue Forests and Blue Carbon. I'm going to give an overview of the project and talk about the project's findings, outputs, and reflect on future opportunities. So essentially, the concept of blue carbon was introduced in late 2009 in lead up to the Copenhagen COP15 climate conference. It was introduced through two seminal reports by UNEP and IUCN, Blue Carbon and the Management of Natural Coastal Carbon Sinks. Now, these reports in 2009 stimulated great interest in merging marine conservation with climate action. And after the introduction of those reports, NGOs, non-government organizations, built coalitions among each other and saw themselves as being highly effective at getting national states and stakeholders interested in climate change mitigation via wetland conservation and restoration activities. So blue carbon. And they also did a great job in it, as well as raising public awareness to the importance of the oceans for climate change. So some terminology definitions before we go forward right now. Blue forests are coastal and marine ecosystems that store carbon and support a multitude of ecosystem services and benefits and co-benefits. Blue carbon, or that's blue forests. Blue carbon is the carbon that's sequestered by the oceans and by coastal ecosystems. And coastal blue carbon in salt marsh, mangrove, and seagrass habitats is what many in the international community have focused on in terms of, as I've mentioned, climate conservation for climate change mitigation and adaptation opportunities. So why are these habitats important? Well, as you can see from the graphic on the right, on the left, coastal blue carbon habitats sequester a lot of carbon. Sequestration is the annual uptake of carbon into plant biomass and soils. The carbon flux into these soils, into these habitats, every year is up to 10 times as much carbon into the soils of terrestrial forests. The graphic on the right illustrates that soil in these coastal ecosystems can store enormous amounts of carbon compared to terrestrial forests. And that carbon, as I've mentioned, is stored mostly in their soils, not just in their biomass like in terrestrial forests. So these ecosystems, these coastal blue carbon ecosystems, are found throughout the world. You can see on this map that the green is for seagrasses, yellow is for salt marsh, and orange is for mangroves. So you can see that these types of blue carbon ecosystems are found almost anywhere in the world. However, these coastal habitats are also some of the most threatened ecosystems in the world. Worldwide, we are losing our coastal blue carbon habitats at ranges ranging from 0.7% up to 7% of their global coverage every year. And when we destroy these ecosystems, they go from being impressive natural carbon sinks to becoming large very large carbon sources. So the carbon that was stored there is now released into the atmosphere, which is bad. Okay, when they are degraded, they also lose to provide us with these many other important ecosystem services and co-benefits. So these habitats provide important, these ecosystems provide important habitat for fish, shellfish, turtles, birds, and many other important species. They provide awesome opportunities for recreation, and they are important for protection from coastal storms and flooding. So it's within that context, so the need and the importance of these ecosystems and the threat that they face, that the Global Environment Facility was interested in advancing the science around coastal blue carbon and these ecosystems and the value of these ecosystems. So it wants to understand how carbon and other ecosystem, important other ecosystem benefits could support conservation and climate action, as well as sustainable livelihoods. So in 2011, the Global Environment Facility Council improved the concept, and a project preparation grant was developed to design the project. The project was approved for implementation in February 2014, and then we've been implementing it from January 2015. So essentially, and this slide shows some different pathways. This was a slide that was developed back in 2014 and earlier, where we look at the different pathways for harnessing the value of blue carbon and blue forests. And back in 2014, we really didn't have the answer to see if these pathways could be realized or not. So these are different pathways for testing the value of harnessing of these benefits. But now, through the GEF intervention, we have the answer to many of these pathways that we didn't have before. Okay, so the project includes demonstration sites in 8 countries. And this is where on-the-ground testing of the methodologies and approaches for carbon accounting and ecosystem service valuation has been tested. Project components included the development of guidance for carbon science, ecosystem services valuation and policy, the application of blue forest project sites at the demonstration sites, targeted research to fill key blue carbon knowledge gaps, the adoption of methodologies and approaches by the international community, and project networking and information sharing. And the first project site I'd like to profile is our experience in the United Arab Emirates, organized by the Abu Dhabi Global Data Initiative. And this started out with the Abu Dhabi Blue Carbon Demonstration Project, and then later built to a national effort. And through this project, carbon and ecosystem services were assessed for mangroves, seagrasses, and saltwater marshes. And the values that we found from this project, and I said we because Gurdandal helped manage this project as well, but this project served as co-finance to the Blue Forest project. Well, anyway, the values were incorporated into policy at municipal, Emirates, and national levels. And this includes their National Biodiversity Climate Strategies Action Plan, and incorporation into urban and marine spatial planning. The exploration of blue carbon in Abu Dhabi through the Abu Dhabi Blue Carbon Demonstration Project was replicated and upscaled throughout the entire other Emirates in the UAE. And this resulted also in the UAE including this value of blue carbon in their nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC, which essentially meant that the UAE is one of the world's first leading countries to do that. The UAE also used their experience to profile the value of blue carbon on the international stage, which helped lead to the formation of the International Partnership on Blue Carbon. So there's been some significant policy advances and pathways to recognize the value of blue carbon and ecosystem services at multiple scales. Within the UAE, we also studied some regional significant ecosystems, not just the common coastal blue carbon one, and that was the coastal sabkha and the intertidal cyanobacterial algal mats. Well, our next project site is in Gazi Bay and Vanga Bay, Kenya. And this project site comes to us through the Kenya National Marine Fisheries Research Institute. And it looks at setting up community-based carbon finance offsetting, okay? And this was certified through the Plan Vivo standard. And the Plan Vivo standard is a mechanism for certifying carbon offsets that are traded on the international carbon market. Now, essentially what occurs in Gazi Bay and Vanga Bay is that communities receive funds from the international market to support conservation and restoration activities. They can then use these funds to support the profit of these funds can also support education, ecotourism, development of ecotourism activities, and water and sanitation. So, for example, the building of freshwater wells. Through the support from the Global Environment Facility, we were able to take the experiences, the successful implementation of coastal blue carbon at the world's first working community-based blue carbon project in Gazi Bay, and then replicated down the coast in Vanga Bay on the border with Tanzania. And the beneficiaries of the project include 5 communities with over 20,000 citizens. And the testing of seagrass carbon offsets has also been undertook within the project, and the findings are also being incorporated into or have been incorporated into Kenya's national utilitarian contribution to the UNFCCC. Okay, so in Madagascar, our project site it was 2 project sites that came to us through Blue Ventures, which is a UK-based foundation that we've been using to set up also 2 community-based voluntary carbon market projects. One is in the Bay of Assassins in southwest Madagascar. It's called Tahari Honko, and it encompasses about 1,230 hectares of mangroves. The other one is in Timpiska Bay in northwest Madagascar, and it encompasses 10 villages as well. So at the southern site, we've been able to test the setting up the voluntary carbon market project under Plan Vivo. And this has led to a number of results. So right now, the project is still waiting for certification to receive the payments, but the community-based mangrove carbon finance has been certified under the Plan Vivo standard, and testing has occurred through the Vera standard for the other site. And this will mean that also within Madagascar, conservation and reforestation of mangroves will support at least 9 communities down in the Bay of Assassins. And Blue Ventures has also tested how to combine this to support communities, not just by blue carbon, but through other things like sustainable octopus fishery and a sea cucumber fishery as well. Okay. In Ecuador, our project partner is Conservation International, and our project site was located in the Gulf of Guayaquil in southern Ecuador. Conservation International focused on mainstreaming information about mangrove ecosystem services into policy frameworks and different mechanisms for policymakers to take action on sustainable mangrove conservation and restoration. And this was done essentially by setting up of mangrove conservation agreements with local communities. So local communities, and by local communities, I mean the fishing associations, were able to sign conservation agreements with the national government, whereby they would gain exclusive or primary access to the resources of the mangrove areas. So for example, the red mangrove crab, which you can see in the image there. And so they would have economic incentives, and the government would benefit because there would be additional eyes on the water to police these mangrove areas. Now, the project was able to successfully, through our partner Conservation International, support over 40,000 hectares of mangroves to be included in this scheme in Ecuador. Now, in Mozambique, we worked with the World Wildlife Fund, and our location area is the Primeras and Segundas Environmental Protection Area, located within the Zambezi and Nampula provinces of northern Mozambique. And through engagement with the World Wildlife Fund, we've been able to have the value of mangrove carbon and ecosystem services incorporated into national policy, such as the National Mangrove Management Plan. These values have also been advanced in Mozambique's international commitments. So, for example, the NDC to the UNFCCC, hopefully we'll see the results of that from that soon. And we have developed the first feasibility assessment for community-based blue carbon finance projects in Mozambique, and hopefully that will have life and legs of its own. I think there's a very high chance that that will occur. Okay. Three other project sites which come to us from co-finance were managed by Counterpart International, NOAA, US NOAA, and Indonesia. And the first one in Dominican Republic by Counterpart International developed the world's first blue carbon national appropriate mitigation action, or NAMA. Now, this NAMA has not found financial support, but we've benefited from the lessons learned through this experience that Counterpart International had. The experiences include community engagement, mangrove science, and policy policy engagement. The USA contributed through blue carbon explorations in the Snohomish Estuary in Puget Sound and in Tampa Bay, Florida. And now those experiences are feeding into renewed interest in the US to develop blue carbon in national and state policy. And that's quite exciting and we're quite happy about that. In Indonesia, blue carbon assessments in mangrove and seagrass carbon continue as Indonesia decides on which blue carbon policy and implementation options they would like to pursue. Obviously, Indonesia has a lot to think about as they are the world's leading country in blue carbon stocks. And through the IUCN, we've been able to engage at international fora such as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and call for countries or support countries in recognizing the value of blue carbon in their climate actions. So, for example, for the Marrakesh COP22 in 2016, the project and partners produced the first assessment and inventory of blue carbon in nationally determined contributions. And through regional NDC meetings and other engagements, this has been built upon, and now dozens more countries have recognized the importance of these ecosystems in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation actions. So, but we're not just stopping on the coasts. The project has also supported discussions on marine vertebrate carbon services, and they are more recently emerging in a wider range of climate and conversation discussions. And although, and I must state this, the scientific foundation for the oceanic blue carbon is still being laid, and there may be jurisdictional and measurability issues to overcome, this concept is rapidly gaining popular interest and traction. Through partner co-finance, the Blue Forest Project has supported interest in this subject with the International Monetary Fund, discussions on whale carbon at the International Whaling Commission, at UN Oceans meetings, and other events. And so this is a stay tuned prospect. So just to recap, I'd like to say that with partner support, blue forests and blue carbon are now ready for implementation. So previous to the project, these projects were not ready for prime time. now coastal blue carbon and ecosystem services projects are ready for prime time. So you can see that pathways diagram, we actually have examples to fill in on those pathways. And that's really exciting because as Letitia said, we didn't have a lot of funds to support this project from the outset, but we've been able to do, this topic just took off, and it's really exciting to see what's next. So what's next is, now that the blue forest values are being implemented, now that the coastal blue carbon and coastal ecosystem services are being recognized in policy and management, the tools, training, and capacity building are needed to achieve these ambitious goals. And that includes the lessons learned and experiences of the Blue Forest Project, which are being compiled in an innovative Blue Forest Solutions website to be launched and profiled tomorrow on day 2 of our event. Blue Forests is now a viable and important nature-based economic solution, or nature-based blue economy solution. So now, after the coffee break, we'll be joined by our high-level and ambassador panel, who will be discussing the relevance of blue forests and blue carbon in the current state of international marine conservation, sustainable and climate policy. We'll see you again in about 30 minutes, okay? James, is everything good there?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. We can end now. There are some questions in the chat. Would you like to answer them maybe in the next session?
Do I have any minutes remaining?
What we'll do is then we'll take those and we'll include them in the questions during the next session for the panel and wrap up now. So
okay, that's fine.
See you shortly in the next session.
All right, see you guys.